In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, in honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to, in the presence of the original being, the system admin, and the world host to this simulation, existential system, and world room. For the great legacy of the human species, this moment finds a conscious opportunity. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture. You're listening to a Muslim futurist. I consider that this world has a system admin beyond the world room. I consider we are users, and I consider there's invisible moderators here even. I consider that the world is more unknown than it is known. And I consider due to that, man's access to the world is more unknown than known. However, in today's lecture, I wanted to speak about control. I haven't dived into this topic. I have steered away from this topic. But I don't know, today is a very strange day. And strange days are fascinating because you're living a new life. And so the topic is control. And these two sentences arose to me, and I was like, yo, man, I'm starting to see things. So based on how far I see into a topic, I can share. And hopefully in this lecture, there will be an advance opportunity for clear expression. All right. So I have written cultures are how you control nations. Nations are how you control a species. But what is every agency in this system and wherever in the hierarchy feeling like they're controlling? What is it that they're controlling? What does control mean? What does it mean to be in control? Every person, I think this is an important topic because you right now consider control, but you consider control through a certain range. To truly understand what does it mean to control anything in a changing world, in an unknown world. What does it mean to control? What does it mean to be in control? These are important questions. There's a research component today. Give me a minute, folks. Okay. So before I dive into the research component, I will share a certain view I have on control. You're listening to someone who, since 2014, dedicated himself to solve a colossal problem. Okay? And that colossal problem was like, what's going on here? What is this? For me right now, in previous lectures, I've spoken about the idea of Civilization 1.0 and Civilization 2.0. Where in Civilization 1.0 is looping. That means every human being is seeing, in some sense, everything, every form they see, its meaning is based on their past. The future is, they have made the future too far to reach. And that is ignorance. There was a saying I heard somebody say, I don't know, it was a video on like YouTube Reels or Instagram Reels, one of these. And there was a person who said, you want to know if you're being controlled? Is there something you can't say? Is there something you can't do? Is there something you can't be? Okay. This was a very interesting idea because what is very fundamental to at the core of human psychology is fear. Okay. And we're all dealing with it in different ways. And there's fear about, past, present, and future. The fear of the past is its archaic revival if it was a tragic event. For example, we have fears of world wars. Fears of the present are pretty much anything that you feel a sense of danger. But what's funny is that human beings don't fear the future yet, and I am going to change your mind. But how to fear it is another discussion, because it's not the fear from the ego. Anyways, so folks, we go to the research component. Okay, pretty much I'm on ChatGPT. The purpose of the research component is just to share views. Okay, we're trying to access as many views we can to an idea to comprehend it. So these lectures, pretty much the way I learn things is by spiraling around from various angles to begin to get a sense of what is that event or phenomena and what is intelligence really doing in the moment. So I asked AI, give me cultures, or I pretty much said, I copy pasted the title, cultures are how you control nations, nations are how you control the species. I said, give me a historic passage, an academic passage, an advanced passage, and explain to me the observable means to control and the unobservable, and how control was in the past, now, and will be in the future, and what common misunderstandings are there about the evolution of control. AI is giving me an answer. It says this is a powerful framing, but it needs to be handled carefully because, in quotations, control is often misunderstood as something purely oppressive, when historically it is also about coordination, identity formation, and stability at scale. I'll give you 4 passages you can read. Okay. So, guys, the whole point of it is control is we can treat it like anything else. That, for example, you have a knife. A knife can be used to hurt people. If you use a knife to hurt people, do you know you're an evil person? If you use knife to cook food, you're a good chef. So it's about the utility. It's about it's about how the control is happening. This is very important. That suggests if it's healthy control or unhealthy control. So, historic passage from the earliest, I'm reading this, from the earliest civilizations. Control over human populations did not begin with armies, but with meaning. In places like ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, rulers understood that the most durable form of influence was not force, but belief. Pharaohs were not merely kings, they were gods in human form, embedding authority into the very structure of reality as perceived by their people. So, guys, right off the bat, during the Pharaoh's time, what were they doing with control? They were turning themselves into God. You know how? They pretty much made everybody dependent on them. Do you know? Just think about it in a family. Who has the power? What is the power structure in the family? You know? To the kids, it's the mother and the father. You understand? But to the mother, it's the father. And if the father is wise, he realizes what is in charge is actually God. So it's like the man of the household, you understand, must move himself closer to a higher exemplar of being. So what does this mean? In a household, the father is the authority. Do you know? When the father is not there, the mother is the authority, traditionally speaking. Let's say single moms, the mother is acting both roles. But women should not lose their grace when attempting, to fulfill male roles. This is the biggest tragedy of modern times. A majority of the feminine energy is being reduced. Okay, and in some sense, majority of women think that by becoming like men, they are fitting into the system. They're going to be treated equal, but you don't get it. You are getting rid of something that should be preserved. You understand? The more hectic and savage, guys, this is me talking here, like the more hectic and savage the world becomes, the more important it is for the masculine energy to protect the feminine energy. There's a reason we all saw the film Titanic. There's a reason women and children went on first. Because if that was the last boat with the last human beings, the continuity of the species. Children are the potential of mankind. Women are, in some sense, a portal, but also women are pretty much, how can I tell you? Women are the moon of our lives. Men are the sun of our lives, you know? And God is the sky of our lives, you know? For me personally, I'm trying to say this. If the feminine energy becomes confused, that means there's something called epistemic entropy. Epistemic entropy means bringing disorder to a system of knowledge, and then the system of knowledge becomes lost. So if women stop being feminine, could it be lost? I don't know. We're gonna look at films and be like, yo man, women used to be women. Now they're all like some sort of, you know, confused soul. You know, we are all souls. You know, my acknowledgement is in the same way we consider everybody to be energy. You know, it's like everybody's energy. You understand? But how the energy functions, that means, you know, biologically it's different, and even not just based on the biology, but psychologically it's different. But anyways, let me keep reading. So it says, pharaohs were not merely kings, they were gods in human form, embedding authority into the very structure of reality as perceived by their people, until Moses, for example, enlightened the pharaoh. Didn't even enlighten him, but tried to, you know. Similarly, I'm reading this here. It said, similarly, early empires such as ancient Rome maintained cohesion across vast territories by spreading language, law, and shared rituals rather than relying solely on military presence. Religious institutions later refined this further through texts, traditions, and moral systems. They shaped not only behavior, but inner conscience. The individual began to govern themselves according to internalized codes. Thus, the evolution of control moved from external domination to internal alignment. Culture became the invisible architecture through which entire civilizations could be guided without constant enforcement. Did you hear that? Now we go to the second passage, the academic passage. In modern scholarship, particularly in sociology and political science, control is more precisely described as the regulation of behavior through systems of norms, institutions, and symbolic frameworks. Thinkers like Michel Foucault argued that power evolved from sovereign authority, visible centralized control, to disciplinary systems embedded in everyday life. Modern nation states operate through layered mechanisms, legal systems, education, media, and economic structures. National identity, constructed through shared language, history, and symbols, serves as a binding force that aligns millions of individuals toward common narratives and goals. These systems do not require constant coercion. Rather, they function through what is termed soft power, where individuals willingly conform because the system defines what is normal, desirable, and legitimate. Thus, control in the academic sense is not simply domination, but the shaping of possibility spaces. What people believe they can do, should do, and must do within a given society. We go to third, the advanced passage. At the highest level, control of a species is not achieved by controlling its bodies, but by shaping its perceptual reality. Culture is the operating system of human consciousness. Nations are the containers that standardize that operating system across millions of individuals. When aligned, they create synchronized behavior at scale. Yes. When we go to a bank, we all get in line. Do you see that? Or we are technically dominated, but it's a sort of soft domination. Deep down, subconsciously, I feel everybody's submissive. They don't understand. You could be like the most alpha person, the most strongest person, but still you don't get it. The submission is not from your own mind. You might have you might have through in your inner realms, from only your world of meaning, become an alpha in it. But when you realize what civilization is, it is an operating system to what? To control the outcome of groups of people in the same place. I'm going to keep reading. It says, nations are containers that standardize the operating system across millions of individuals. When aligned, they create synchronized behavior at scale. In the past, control was anchored in myth and divine authority. In the present, it is mediated through information systems, algorithms, media ecosystems, and economic incentives. In the future, it will likely operate at the level of cognition itself. Attention, identity, and perception may become programmable domains. The most advanced form of control is not when people are forced, but when they believe they are freely choosing within a predefined network. At that point, resistance becomes difficult to even conceptualize because the boundaries of thought itself have been shaped. I'll read that again. It says the most advanced form of control is not when people are forced, but when they believe they are freely choosing within a predefined framework. Do you know what that means? That means if you think you're free too soon, you could be very controlled. Okay? So it says then at that point resistance becomes difficult to even conceptualize because the boundaries of thought itself have been shaped. Thus the trajectory of control is moving from force, structure, perception, and then cognition. The species is not controlled by chains, but by the architecture through which it understands reality. That was such an important sentence. The species is not controlled by chains, but by architectures through which it understands reality. That is the most fundamental level of control. And these lectures of mine are like in the middle of this controlling system. I'm not trying to break the system. I've opened a parallel universe. Do you know? I am like using the future to free the past, but the past has no choice. Excuse me. I'm using not the past. I'm using the future to free the present, and but the present has no choice other than to treat its insight of the future as a parallel reality. We human beings don't assume that we can know the future, right? So we're like, okay, we don't know the future. Even though back in the day somebody said there will be castles in the clouds and everybody laughed at that king or at that prince. Good and evil have reached a point of their battle in 2026 that divine genius is entering the room. Divine genius will activate through all members of the human species. Anyways, I'm going to keep going. It says in the past. No, I read that. We go to 4. Observable versus unobservable control. It says observable versus unobservable control. Observable, which is visible mechanisms. So what are the visible mechanisms to control, and what are the invisible mechanisms to control? It says, I'm going to keep reading. It says, observable visible mechanisms, these are easy to identify. Laws and enforcement, police, courts, prisons. Government and political systems, military power, economic systems, in brackets, taxation, wages, cost of living. Education systems, curriculum, standardized knowledge. Media institutions, in brackets, news, broadcasting. These create explicit boundaries, what you can and cannot do. So the visible mechanisms to control folks, the observable type of control, the observable control creates explicit boundaries. So it's obvious, it's visible. Like you can do this and you cannot do this. Do you know? And then we go to unobservable. Invisible mechanisms. This is where real power often lies. Cultural norms, in brackets, what feels normal or wrong. You could be controlled right now. What you think is right, what you think is wrong, it could be controlled. Language, what concepts exist or don't exist. Yes. You know, I have been, you know, participating in the inner war for years now. It dawned on me. I was like this oblivious, you know, happy person just talking, and then I began to realize the invisible architecture that we are all in. And it's very difficult because I am here wondering about what does this species truly deserve. And I'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to keep reading. So it says, what are the invisible mechanisms of control? Cultural norms, what feels normal or wrong. Language, what concepts exist or don't exist. Identity, national, religious, ideological narratives. History is told not just as it happened. Social validation, what is praised, mocked, or ignored. And that's hilariously, you know, what children in schools experience. They experience the basic forms of that type of control. You know, attention systems, what people are shown repeatedly. Why do I say the species is looping? Not because the media is looping it, because the questions that awaken our souls have not been asked. So I'm going to keep reading. It says, these shape what you even think about doing. A simple way to explain it is observable control tells you don't do this. Unobservable control makes you never even think of doing it. And I want you as a member of the human species to wander from the three categories of self, world, and beyond in regards to what is invisible control and what is visible control. You see, folks, I noticed that I had a different experience of metaphysics compared to different communities here. Okay? And so you are listening to, in the outer realm, some random dude living a simple life, you know. But in the inner realms, I am not limited to my outer life. My present is in some sense more unconditional than the conditions that give me a sort of simulated personality momentarily. Now we go to the next part of the research component: common misunderstandings about control. 1. Control equals oppression only. This is wrong. It says, in reality, control also enables coordination. Without shared systems, large-scale societies collapse into chaos. So guys, we got to understand, we had to have shared meaning. That's how we gathered and made, like all of us had spears, and we in some sense hunted mammoths and had food for a long time. Shared meaning enabled humanity over time to step beyond, to get out of the food chain. Okay, but that shared meaning was soon realized as a medium of manipulation by the ignorant. And when I say ignorant, some of the most there's two types. There's an ignorance. There's one, being ignorant in a simulation, and two, there is being ignorant in a true moment. But anyways, I'll keep reading. It says, 2. People are fully controlled or fully free. Control exists on a spectrum. Individuals operate within constraints, but still have agency within those constraints. 3. Control is always centralized. No, modern control is distributed. It exists in institutions, platforms, and even peer pressure, not just governments. 4. The past was more controlled than today. In some ways, today is more controlled, but more subtly. The shift is from visible force. Guys, AI is saying this. I'm reading ChatGPT, yo. It says the shift is from visible force to invisible influence. 5. Control is static. Control evolves with technology. Oral tradition became religious systems, print became nation building, broadcast media became mass persuasion, digital system became personalized influence. Closing line, it says you can end with this. Humanity has, in quotations, humanity has never escaped control. It has only transformed it. The question is no longer whether we are controlled, but whether we understand the systems shaping us and whether we can consciously participate in designing them. Bam. There we go. There we go. Good job, ChatGPT. So ChatGPT fearlessly and boldly told the random person who put a prompt in it that humanity has never escaped control. It has only transformed it. The question is no longer whether we are controlled, but whether we understand the systems shaping us and whether we can consciously participate in designing them. So the view, I'll go over the common misunderstandings about control again. ChatGPT shared 5, probably there's so much more. So 1, control doesn't mean oppression. When someone is in control, it doesn't mean they're the oppressor. Okay? Do you know? But they do have an ability to oppress. Do you know? It's like just because the father in a family has control doesn't mean Do you know that it's in some sense wrong, or he shouldn't have control? Can you imagine, like, imagine the mother convinces the son, your father shouldn't have control. Do you know the father leaves? Then the son is convinced that the mother shouldn't have control. Then the mother leaves. And then the son is alone. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important what you consider human and what you consider the greatness of humanity. It is a very strange situation. The fact that they have made all of you convinced. One of the biggest things that I regret about my life is why I did not have the awareness I have now when I was in the educational system. You don't understand. That means it's as if the biggest abuse was trying to fit into a system. Was trying to fit into a world that was hollow. In other words, all the majority of human beings don't comprehend the nature of the psychological game of life. They're just basing it on the physiological game of life. And this notion that you're either controlled or you're fully free is wrong. So in other words, what option does man have going from duality? He's like, okay, it's not either this or that. It's that it's a spectrum and it's layered out. There's many layers to it. So guys, that was the research component, and now it is time to hear yours truly. When I say yours truly, I mean Civilization 2.0. I'm not talking to any Civilization 1.0 zombies. Okay? Majority of you are zombies. You know, if you somehow hear this talk and get a new emotion and you care for your species, only those. You understand? That means I am looking for the humanity that cares for the future humanity. If you don't care for the future, you have already been devoured by the past. You don't need to, like, let me tell you this. You know, there's a saying, there was that scene where, what was it? It was in Avengers. I saw this scene. Man, it was so cool. It was like this scene where Doctor Strange and Tony Stark and Spider-Man, Iron Man and Tony Stark were there, and suddenly the Guardians of the Galaxy take Spider-Man as hostage, right? And then suddenly Doctor Strange looks at them and says, "What master do you serve?" Because they're not humans that came from Earth. Do you know what I mean? And then the guy's like, "What do you want me to say? Jesus?" Do you know what I mean? Like, and then like, do you know? And then they're like, and then what is it called? You know, Tony Stark looks at the guy. I forget the guy's name. Quill, looks at Quill or something. And they're like, "Okay, where are you from?" or something. He says, "I'm from Missouri." And then Tony Stark says, like, "That's on Earth, dipshit." Like, pure writing genius. Man, I really wish that, there was a pure community, like, you don't understand. All the institutions we see, we're accessing the impure. You don't understand. There will come a pure time. It's like a sine wave. I'm telling you, we are just in the impure. That means, man, if I was born a couple thousand years later, it would have been a much more pure civilization. But I was born in 1991. At least the system admin was like, "Yo, man, when you're gonna figure how deep it is where you are, at least I blessed you with some things. I put you in a symmetrical year. I let you be between both realities." That of a kid that in some sense still climbed trees when I was young, and also stayed up till late and played PlayStation, FIFA, with my cousins. All right, guys, now I'm going to explain to you why I wrote these titles and how there's so many more sentences in a sort of hierarchical way I could have written. So, out of 8.1 billion human beings on Earth, why are you listening to this random, which to you is random, human being that's calling himself, the first person in history to try to guide the species towards its inner potential rather than being brainwashed by an outer realm that never saw you the way you did because it wasn't you? Some people have told me to go into politics, and do you know why I don't? Because I will feel too disgusted. Not because of what's happening there. It's because it is child's play. All the leaders of nations, all the most powerful human beings on earth, whatever souls you are and in whatever inner realms you linger, you might be to yourself more important than anything else, or you may have realized what is more important is beyond the human condition. If you have realized and discovered that this world has a system admin, and the system admin is the original being, in other words, the world was not born somewhere, it was commanded into existence. You're not in a logical, analytical simulation. You are in a world where the creative and the analytical are together, where the known and the unknown are together, where the invisible and the visible are there together, and without each other they cannot change. All the good people need the bad people to feel good. All the bad people need the good people to feel bad, but they do not understand. They are the same energy in the same moment, and on some very microcosmic level there is no difference. And yet we kill each other as members of species over differences. World War III, do you know, is like peeking at us, and mankind is staying stable. Now for the first time in history, all the poets, all the speakers, anybody, just find any rhythm in your inner realms and march into the realm. And you're not preaching, you are shouting at a world that is unnecessarily sinking itself. What is the advancement of human civilization in a changing world? It is to uphold oneself at the most advanced state possible. Why are people trying to get enlightened when all you had to do was realize where you are? In front of your eyes, you are, I know this, I know all of you are incredible actors. I know that the body, just like an Iron Man suit, is a Carbon Man suit. And I know that Tony Stark is the ego. But what is really there? What is that life that moves us prior to explanation? You are a life that moves in order to explain. That means the unexplainable happens first, then you find explanations. And so every philosopher in history, whether they knew it or not, were rebelling. You use the world in front of your eyes to rebel against your own world. And once you're free in your own world, you rebel beyond the outer realm. But it's not a physical rebellion. It is not protests on the street. It's a rebellion of a new conduct, new behavioral language. Those human beings That means imagine right now in 2026, what was that whole like event with like George Floyd, or even like some other stuff, like human violence has always been there. Do you understand? But what is the reason for it to not be there? Do you understand? The reason control has always been there is because there's violence. And not just because there's violence, because there is an ability to control. That means everybody is like, yo, man, I'm sure if I had power, there would be nothing wrong with me. Do you know I could maintain it? Little do they know that all those people on earth who are not famous, you do not know how to control power. And all those people who are famous, you don't even know how to control power either, but you have been privileged to be part of the visual language of man. So if I'll give you an example. If somebody comes and speaks to me in English, English is a language. They're speaking in a sort of verbal language, vocal language. But if I look at, for example, in my psyche, I know I was raised on like Jim Carrey videos. Do you know what I mean? And Jim Carrey, I have never met this guy. I've just saw him as a kid when I was in Iran on this like satellite channel called MBC2. I saw Jim Carrey, which is a human that was in a very unique route. And all of you, I don't even care. Those in power and those not in power, all human beings are fascinating. It doesn't matter, how ethical or unethical they are. This is from Plato's World of Forms. I have a designer's soul. The geometry is fascinating in a dimension independent of the meaning given to it. But at the same time, ignorance is disgusting. Why? Because you're wasting the time you had. So Jim Carrey is part of the visual language. When somebody talks to me, they're telling me words. When I see something, you don't need to give me words. Do you know what I mean? When I see the Statue of Liberty, somebody doesn't need to tell me, look at the Statue of Liberty. I'm seeing it. Direct access. So visual and forms and anything you see is how, believe it or not, an unknown world is having a conversation with you. But it's not a language conversation where the world is using words. The world uses images. It uses shapes to speak. They're like, yo, nature is mute. Man doesn't listen. Oh, yeah, we don't speak the language of manifestation. But maybe if we stop being people based on the past, we may notice more. Have you heard the term mindless? Do you know who is mindless? Someone, they say, who doesn't mind. That's a mindless person. And believe it or not, I will tell you the story. I will tell you one of the most fascinating views you will access in this realm. Who is Mr. Within? A genius general that decided to create an army of geniuses. Evolution has turned into an ideological loop In other words, all human funding should go to novelty and, in some sense, protecting human attention from dehumanization. So here it goes. Here's the Mr. Within vision. Imagine I was walking in a sky city and I had this sort of android peregrine falcon, just as a pet, which was the most advanced AI, AI system and defense system, and I was walking in a sky city, just going and, hanging on the edge of the sky city like a balcony and seeing the whole planet and cities underneath. And the air circulation and winds were all regulated by invisible, like force fields, egg-shaped force fields. To honor the king of the sky, the birds, and the king of the land, the felines. Imagine I was walking 400 years, 600 years from now. And 600 years from now, I was walking in a sky city with my falcon pet following me, and suddenly a group of extraterrestrial, let's say warlords, landed on that, just landed there, and they came to have a conversation. The extraterrestrial warlords if a bunch of extraterrestrial warlords were like, okay, you're the closest human nearby, we came to have a conversation, and we've decided to invade your species, but one of our members of our council was like, let us hear you guys out first. And we thought we'd come and ask you guys, what are you? Imagine like a Skyrim menu, it's like there comes the option, say the truth, lie, or run away, or leave. And I choose to say the truth of my eyes. First of all, I would say, okay, let me explain to you why if you invade the human species, it would be to a disadvantage. That's what I would say. Actually, if I had an opportunity to just say anything to them, I'd be like, let me explain to you that how stupid it is if you invade the human species or extraterrestrial warlords. It is stupid, okay, because you have not seen the full development of the human species. That means if you were to invade a species that was its most advanced state, then it would be a sort of fair challenge. But because we're not in our most advanced state, it is foolish. Now, let's say even you extraterrestrial warlords decide to invade Earth and decide to introduce human beings to a different class of energy presence. We are not alone. We have a very specific system admin privilege as a species, and anything can choose to disrupt us and bother us, because once the species conquers fear, God's command would become the greatest service. This is a divine jurisdiction. I would tell those extraterrestrial warlords, not only we're not a fully developed species and you will create an enemy for the rest of your days if you fail to defeat us. You are also intervening with a power that created the universe. So I would look at that extraterrestrial and say, fear the potential of mankind and fear the clarity of the system admin, the will, the command of the keeper of all worlds. They're like, Mr. Within, why are you talking about control? Because life has become very boring, and out of boredom they have thought chaos is more interesting. Rather than looking for the greatness of our species, they are laughing at how it's defeating itself. That means I thought I had the time to hate the world. You don't have the time. You do not have the luxury to go against your species, because what is coming towards the species is massive dehumanization. Do you understand? Today, it's hilarious. It's stupid conditioning. If they're like, somebody controls the world, I'll be like, it's whatever. Whoever it is a fool. It's not a smart person. It's not a smart energy. It's a very ignorant, child level energy. It's a soul that doesn't know where it is. That means there will come a time, I am telling all of you guys, you heard it here, okay? You heard it on Earth in 2026 on what's the date? April 15th, Wednesday, 11:19 p.m. in Toronto, Canada. Some dude was talking in his car. You are all present and attending an unknown event. This is what's going on. This is an unknown place. We were unknown. This is an unknown world. Unknown selves appeared. Once unknown selves noticed themselves, they managed to use language to subjectify themselves. Once we subjectified ourselves, we became a known self, and now we're looking at an unknown world as a known being and being like, man, there's everything to know. We got to know all this. But before you were anybody, you were the presence of the unknown as it is present in the unknown. So, unknown world, unknown selves appeared. They turned themselves into known selves, and now they think they know the world, and they're living in their own known world. It's like, yo, man, nature was doing its thing. Then we arrived and we started doing our thing. Now, people, the generations, the future generations, they're not being born in the wilderness. They're being born in organized environments. Their whole life is based on organization. And so the modern kid most likely will feel that nature is actually disorder and civilization is more ordered. Do you understand? But you will realize years later that it was the other way around. You will realize that just taking a walk every day is saving your soul. Just touching a tree and being like, I remember you. I remember you before they I remember you, O spirit of nature, O presence of the natural, O mistakes, silliness, imperfections, humor. I remember you before the dehumanized, crystallized everything into a singular specific order. I remember how the garden was messy. I remember the freedom of nature. I remember when children climbed trees. Now there are apps where you climb trees in. Do all of you not see? To be human is for our attention to maintain a certain state. It is a state. There are infinite states. What's making you from thinking that you have infinite souls? Sorry, I tear up because you know the madness. I tear up because the might of madness is in the room. The same mistake is happening. The same pattern. The same pattern that was expressed in theology. That Adam and Eve listened to a simulated serpent rather than remembering the original being's command. God had created a creation that was so advanced it could forget God. And even more advanced, it could remember the original life, the original place, the original state. But Adam and Eve listened to a simulated serpent. And we think, yo, man, our souls are so different, bro. We're not in gardens biting from forbidden fruits. The same pattern is happening. They are opting into simulations rather than remembering the original. And this is where Mr. Within is trying to get it in some sense to stop on a species level. But it doesn't stop because we want it to. There is no like man's will coming true. I'm not living in a fantasy land, folks. I am a realist. Okay, and why am I a realist? Because I need the reference point of reality to be able to pinpoint everything else. And they're like, what is life? Life is what you have access to. You have had access to just go look in the mirror. Tell me, what do you see? If I was some sort of next level, like, I hate the word teacher and student because student, it means idiot, and teacher means wise, like stupid. Everybody can be an idiot and everybody can be wise. It is all about what is the furthest reaches of our awareness. That is the greatness of the intelligence of man. We were explorers before we weren't. It is unnatural to loop in a story that we have outgrown as a species. Civilization 2.0 is here, and it will awaken itself through everyone. They're like, what sort of spirituality do you have? I see the potential, the advanced futuristic potential of mankind activating. That means every moment is a choice. Decisions are also portals, giving us access to new rooms where our energy can reset its responsibility. The monkey jumped from branches of trees, and now we're egos jumping off from branches of ideologies, from one idea to an idea to another idea. When will you question the context that is holding every idea you know? When will you wonder that maybe you accepted the wrong world? They're like, Mr. Within. What do you mean advanced civilization? You mean you're trying to build paradise on earth? I'm trying to say, if greatness created us, how could the creation not be great? What has the simulation done? That means this is a very strange question, but just like we're like, what has a person done? Ask yourself, what has your world done? What has it done? Nothing is done. It's a movement. That means we are these mighty unknown life forces that they have, astaghfirullah, that they have contained. The lower nature gives in. The higher nature was free before it needed to be. You are a life force, an unknown life force, moving a known life form. When you look in the mirror, do you know, if Mr. Within was there, this is what I would tell you. Look in the mirror again. Excuse me, I'll ask, imagine this. Right now, go look in the mirror. And imagine I ask you, what do you see? And you're like, I see me, Mr. Within. I'm like, no, look in the mirror again. What do you see? In the same way the lion took the lion that thought it was a sheep to a pond and told it, look at its reflection, what do you see? Greatness is something that the ego will never feel it deserves, because the ego knows it is just simulated in a limited part of the moment. That means the reason human beings kind of suffer psychologically on earth is because they cannot discriminate between their inner realms and outer realms. The inner realms is faster than the outer realms. The inner realms is also more unconditional. Not purely unconditional, but more unconditional than the outer realms. In the outer realms, in order for me to, like, I don't know, get a Bugatti, I gotta, like, go figure that out. And in order for me, in the outer, I have to go on a journey of many moments. But if I want a Bugatti, if I was to visualize a Bugatti right in front of me, like a neon glowing Bugatti, You're all unknown beings. This is an unknown place. Our bodies are simulated here for some time. Our conscious waking state is simulated here for some time, and within our conscious state, waking state, the ideas we identify with are simulated for some time. And eventually, the human being is a being that is spiraling between two dimensions, or I should say it's like a sine wave. The peak is on in another dimension, and the troughs are another dimension. We are like a straight line and a sine. Imagine a straight line going through a sine wave. We're like a sine wave kebab. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a ridiculous way of saying. Like, okay, imagine a sine wave. So draw a sine wave and then draw a line in the center of it. Okay, through it. Okay, pierce it with a line, right? And so there, then in some sense you have this architecture. So imagine now you draw an arrow. So one arrow is going up and down based on the sine wave. One arrow is going straight. You understand? One arrow is going straight, just straight. Okay, so what is going straight is existence, the outer realms. It's going from past to future in a straight line. But what is spiraling here is consciousness. Existence is a straight line. Consciousness is on, off, on, off. What are we, dolphins of intelligence jumping in and out of intelligent and non-intelligent waters? Like, what are we doing here? Right? And so we have to ask these questions because for me, if somebody was like, Mr. Within, what's your agenda? I just realized the most advanced, I cannot know my most advanced self unless it's in the most advanced world. And then I asked myself, what is there more than good and evil? And I realized the advance is always an awareness far superior than good and evil because it can use different structures of good and structures of evil. Reality is so fascinating. You can dehumanize someone by not treating them as a human being. And this is the weird thing. You all are conditionally human. That's why you're zombies. Everybody in Civilization 1.0, if you see a homeless person, you understand, and if you see a billionaire, the billionaire would in some sense not even, this homeless person would not even exist in its internal server. Let's say for some billionaires. You know what I mean? That means that to them, the billionaire is like, you were irresponsible, but it doesn't see the struggle of a soul. It doesn't see more than object and subject. Okay? It's all, let me tell you this. When a person dehumanizes, okay, they stop caring for human value. When you stop caring for human value, you are leaving yourself open to become savage. And so we have to realize that this world is designed, it's neither an angelic heaven and it is neither a beastly hell. But if you do not care for where you are, you can descend. You can de-rank. Your intelligence can de-rank. Evil hurts form, but evil doesn't hurt intelligence, because if evil hurts intelligence, it knows that same hurt will come to it. You cannot punch a wall without breaking your hand. The next time you see an evil opportunity, just ask yourself if you want to punch a wall again. No way. Hold on, guys. I need a minute. All right, guys, I gotta end the talk. Let me say some final words. I got what I wanted out there. The whole point of it was ask yourself the big questions, because even if you ask yourself the small questions, the big questions will still be there. Wonder about how advanced you can be beyond any sort of dualistic archetype, because there's an awareness here. Like, I know, because I'm a human being and I'm experiencing life, okay, and I know that you guys are also human beings too. And so the way I experience it is that I have just sight starting from my eyes. The senses are just receiving reality in an open way. I'm like this open system receiving the information from the realm. But I also notice that what organizes me is a unique agency. For the longest time, I was asking this: where are my ideas coming from? Where is my organization happening? What is moving my hand? If I suddenly want to raise my hand in there, what made me even have that thought or inner view of seeing myself raise my hand in the air before my body followed it up? Our inner lives have a very different mystery to them than our outer lives. The mystery of the outer lives is, why is existence existing? And it cannot be explained inside existence. So they were like, yo man, I thought this guy was some enlightened guru that was going to just say some positive things. It's like, no guys, it's Schrodinger's cat, but it's a civilization that's stuck in it. Do you know what I mean? It's stuck in the box. That means when you are, just imagine, for me, why do I call it a civilization 1.0 zombies? Not that you guys are like physically zombies, that you are, everybody has an advanced potential, you know, with a sort of destined activation or not. And all I'm trying to tell you is this: that all the moments and times that you were looking down on yourself based on the past, depression, suffering, any sort of illness, I don't even care if you're like, let's say, unless you're medically insane person, you need medicine, but if you're just psychologically disturbed, and that's in some sense, I don't care who you are. Okay, wake up. You're all here for some time as an energy, and you can choose to direct yourself. Everybody can, but we have to also realize that the system is directing us and giving us the options. So free will is never free will. It's a multiple choice. Who put the multiple choice there? That's how the questions begin, right? And so it's as if wondering about freedom. That means that moment in the movie where Tom Hanks, do you know if Tom Hanks was that on that island in the movie Castaway? Like, that's a great actor. I don't care about the personal lives of actors anymore. I just see the art form. I don't care about the personal lives of many people. Like behind your eyes, you could be a demented being, or you could be a genius in hiding. I don't know. You could be so ignorant that you have mutated into only extracting joy from chaos. Or you have been liberated to realize that if you choose not to control the moment, you can see how it's being controlled. I experienced this. I'll give you an example, right? And I don't care about this example anymore, but I'll say it. Like, so I've been giving talks for 12 years, and then I was like, all right, guys, I'm gonna put the talks in like membership mode. Do you know? And then I realized there was no value. People were, and I realized that was ignorance, you know, because I had named the channel Mr.Within's Gift, right? But I'm telling you that a decision made based on what an ego wants is very different than a decision made out of a heart that is a moment of awareness that feels the presence of the moment and then acts. There's a reason we're creatures of feeling. We don't have feelings only for like limited reactions to certain moments. It's like feelings are there. You're feeling your existence right now. But I'm just trying to point out that you have an inner realm and an outer realm. The outer realm is a public objective existential server. The inner realm is a private subjective experiential server. The value of our lives is how we convert the moment. They say that the human strategy, or what the human intelligence seems to be doing, is to maintain a coherent self across all the conditions of the lifetime. And it's doing that as a strategy and a sort of rebellious, as a retaliatory strategy, do you know, to the instability and uncertainty of reality. Because you are a specific shaped subject, a specific character in a story, if the outer realms becomes too different than the story you're telling yourselves, you're going to get scared of how you weren't telling yourself the right story. What is greatness in a changing world? Oh my God. Sorry guys, give me a second. So where am I going with this? My species. You're more than you ever thought you were. You're neither just objects or the subjects that think they own them. You are the presence of an unknown moment of being. It is okay to acknowledge the unknown. Because we don't acknowledge the unknown, we prioritize the known over the unknown, then we fear when we realize the known is simulated and it ends. See, this is the bizarre thing. Imagine if a human being was never conceptualized. It would have no concept of life, of death, no concept of time, no concept of anything. It would just be a pure experiential entity. That means how long did it take when members of the species were like, yo man, why is it constantly like an on-off light switch? Why are we in a world where it's suddenly the lights are on and suddenly the lights are off? Like, that was mysterious. To this day, it is one of the strangest mysteries. Do you know? We explain it through planetary movement, the movement of celestial objects, but there's something more here. And so, let me finish the sentence. Okay, hold on. There's still more, actually. There's more, guys. Hold on. I'm not going to end the lecture. Hold on. So, I want to talk about the titles a bit more. I've written cultures are how you control nations. Nations are how you control a species. Now, let me rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite it in the description of the video, okay? Guys, this is going to be amazing. I'm just writing it in the description. There's 0 viewers, but I'm not just talking to the digital audience. I'm talking to all the unborn future generations that watch us. They're waiting for our greatness to activate. Excuse me. So guys, I'm trying to fulfill the sentence. So right now I've written nations are how you control a species, cultures are how you control nations. And then I've written people or people's behavior are how you control cultures. Yeah, people are how you control cultures. And then you have ideas are how you control people. And then it's geometry or design. And geometry is how you control ideas. And attention I guess attention is kind of plural. Attention are how you control geometry. And unknown presence so awareness to your unknown presence. Okay, I'm going to read it. Just wait. Guys, it's worth the wait. I know you're like, what's happening right now? Just trust me. I'm writing something down and then I'll show you. So I said that unknown. Okay, so I said unknown presence are how you control attention. Okay. Technically, it should be, I don't know, it sounds off, but unknown presence is how you control attention. Attention is how you control geometry. Oh man, I should read it the other way. Hold on, guys, I'm reading this too soon. Give me like a minute. So nations are how you control the species. Species are how you control a planet. Planets are how you control space, because everything in the space, if it emerges as conscious, it sees the form as, it sees the planet as meaning. So planets are how you control a species. Planets are how you control space. And space is how you control spaces are and spaces are And spaces are how you control spaces are how you control energy, and energy and energies are how you control being. Yeah. And being is how you control the unknown. It's a round circle. I know, a ring of the absent heaven. Wow, we control the unknown by being. Oh my God. I am so impressed with myself right now for like uncovering this geometric artifact, like artifact or something. I feel like I just discovered a sacred pattern, or an unknown, very unknown pattern. And the unknown is how you control attention. Guys, we are legit sandwiched between the unknown, and everything is a simulation. So folks, you're gonna see the most fascinating thing. This is how it should be numbered. This is the coolest thing I've ever written, honestly. One of the coolest things I've ever written. This is truly like next level writing on my part. Hold on, you're gonna see the coolest thing you've ever seen. Guys, this is so fascinating. I wrote two versions of it here. Yeah. I don't know how to write this, but I put both versions there. But I'll probably share the whole idea of it is that the edge of the macrocosm and the edge of the microcosm come down and they curve to the same point. That means, guys, it's legit. It's a much deeper game we're playing than we thought we're playing. So, folks, I'm gonna read it for you. So, dear listeners, this is the cool thing, and you can check the description of the video. I just updated it. The title was called "Cultures Are How You Control Nations, and Nations Are How You Control a Species." Okay. So those were the two words, but I've fulfilled the whole thing and it can't fit in the description. But it's starting from this. I'll read it from top to bottom, right? So I'll start from nations or how you control a species, and cultures. Okay, the unknown is how you control attention. Attention is how you control geometry. Geometry is how you control ideas. Ideas are how you control people. People are how you control cultures. Cultures are how you control nations. Nations are how you control a species. Species are how you control a planet. Planets are how you control spaces. Spaces are how you control energy. Energies are how you control being. Beings are how you control the unknown. So what does that mean? From the beginning and the end, both go back into the unknown. And the system admin in the Islamic universe says everything returns to the system admin. All simulations, conditional simulations of livelihood, they eventually all return. So we're not technically dying. The religious person doesn't see death. Responsibility continues into the afterlife. If you're secular and you don't believe in an afterlife, it's easy. You're just meant to be responsible for your life. You're not caring for what comes after. But have you cared about how a subject owns the moment, that it's never been just nonfiction, and reality itself as a concept has been a distraction as well? That people think something being real is something only singularly accessed? I'm trying to tell you that the Ring of the Absent Heaven was a concept I designed, where I said that all ideas in philosophy and everything on the planet, divide into 4 quadrants. And one quadrant is the number 0, one quadrant is the number 1, and one quadrant is the number 2, and one quadrant is the number infinity. Why? 0 means that when you wonder about conscious possibility of an animated being, you cannot ignore the context of 0, that the moment can have no value. Then the moment can have singular value. Then you can notice the singular of the value of the moment in a dualistic way. But the moment you become aware more than duality, it's like you can multiply duality by itself and it becomes infinite. So pretty much after duality, you access infinity. Okay, and beyond infinity, it's the unfathomable. Beyond the void, it's unfathomable. Do you understand? It's strange. It's like, dude, what's going on? They're like, yo, man, you're in a nation, and that nation, all the people in that nation are following a specific cultural program. And I'm like, okay, why? You know, and that question opens the sky. Guys, I feel like going into a quote tunnel of Jalaluddin Maulana Rumi quotes randomly. Okay, so this is another research component of the talks of this lecture, and it is technically, I've named it a quote tunnel. Okay, I'm going to tunnel through quotes of Rumi. They're like, all right, this is a unique lecture. Okay. Shout out to AZ Quotes. You know, guys, these are like legendary websites that have been sharing like quotes. Like, this is one of my favorite websites. It's azquotes.com. Like, free shout out to this website. Incredible. Like, thank you on behalf of civilization for providing these quotes. So into the quote tunnel we go as soon as I change the song. The poet Rumi, from I think about 800, maybe 900 years ago, he was alive, and he was Persian, and who better than this, human being who at the age of 7, moved to Canada, but I was still raised in Iran for some time. And I got to see something, but I never knew enough Farsi to be able to read the poems of Rumi in Farsi. So I had to find other means. And so this quote tunnel is very important to me. So I'm going to read it. And I don't know really who this dude was because I wasn't there, but his poetry speaks beyond, it's like a universal language. You discover a universal rhythm in the poetry of a human being that saw something more than the past looped in. The poet Rumi says, the inspiration you seek is already within you. Be silent and listen. Rumi says, goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes. Because for those who love with heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation. The poet Rumi says, always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and twice as beautiful as you'd ever imagined. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. The poet Rumi says, a candle never loses any of its light while lighting up another candle. Buddha said that too. Poet Rumi said, when I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of stress and anxiety. If I sit in my own place of patience, what I need flows to me, and without pain. From this I understand that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. There's a great secret here for anyone who can grasp it. Exactly. And to the heartbroken, Rumi says, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Written with a capital L. The poet Rumi says, the art of knowing is knowing what to ignore. That is so true. You learn it after your mistakes, though. The poet Rumi says, whenever you are alone, remind yourself that God has sent everyone else away, so that there is only you and him. Your heart, the poet Rumi says, your heart knows the way. Run in that direction. Wow. The poet Rumi says, oh my God, this song too intense. There we go. The poet Rumi says, listen with ears of tolerance, see through the eyes of compassion, speak with the language of love. I do, but I love Civilization 2.0. Civilization 1.0 is like obliviously looping. Rumi says our greatest strength lies in the gentleness and tenderness of our heart. The poet Rumi says it's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one else can walk it for you. The poet Rumi says, raise your words, not voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. Yes, that means more powerful than me shouting at the world. It's everybody wondering what the most advanced civilization would look like and first marching towards the most advanced civilization they can see until they discover that they have reached the abode of the advanced. And the abode of the advanced humanity is where you are becoming no longer a self-defeater, but a self-liberator. Your days are no longer in the shadows of the past. Stare into the future and feel the light. The true self waits beyond any thought, any concept. Sorry guys, I went into my own riff. I'm going to keep going. So Rumi says, be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop. The poet Rumi says, I said, what about my eyes? God said, and Rumi was a Sufi Muslim, I believe he believed in God beyond form, an unconditional God. Rumi said, I said, what about my eyes? But he was also a poet. So Rumi says, I said, what about my eyes? God said, keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? God said, keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? God said, tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. He said, stay with it. The wound is where the light enters you. The poet Rumi says, gratitude is the wine for the soul. Go on, get drunk. That means don't get drunk in the outer realms. Become fascinated with what it feels to be in the presence of a world that the most advanced version of you is already building in. I just thought I had to convince the past to remember the future. And when the army of time travelers arrive from the sky, it's as if, yo man, extinction, World War III, all these things terrifying everybody subconsciously. And subconsciously, the human species, it cannot ignore its heartbeat. That means the idea of you may not deserve, but the presence of the species does. Rumi says, appear as you are or be as you appear. Okay, like what is that? Rumi says, protect yourself from your own thoughts. Oh my God. This is why I'm saying the inner realms, there's been a war this whole time where subjects are trying to become you, and objects are only trying to remain as you. But what is there aware of all of it at once? Oh, listeners all around the world, I'm telling you guys, ask yourself, in whose command are you alive in? In what sort of intelligence are you present in? Run away from the truth. The truth was in the whole room. was in the whole room, was aware of the room, whole room, not in the whole room. The poet Rumi says, be grateful for your life, every detail of it, and your face will come to shine like a sun. And everyone who sees it will be glad, would be made glad, would be made glad and peaceful. The poet Rumi says, in every religion there is love, yet love has no religion. Exactly. The poet Rumi says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Treat each guest honorably. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The poet Rumi says, your acts of kindness are iridescent wings of divine love, which linger and continue to uplift others long after your sharing. The poet Rumi says, do not feel lonely. The entire universe is inside you. It's like, okay, man. It's like, I didn't need that sort of enlightenment in my depression. The poet Rumi says, the quieter we become, the more we can hear. The poet Rumi says, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. And do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side you are used to is better than the one to come? Exactly. I was trying to fit into civilization 1.0, but its impureness was like a force field not allowing me. When I say impureness means its lack of awareness to the most advanced potential possible. The poet Rumi says, we carry inside us the wonders we seek outside us. The poet Rumi says, as you start to walk on the way appears. The poet Rumi says, when the world pushes you to your knees, you're in the perfect position to pray. So when you are suffering, it is, if you believe in a higher order process and you're a simulated lower order process here, pray to that original unconditional power. That means if you're an atheist and you didn't know what was happening in the afterlife, and let's say you saw a miracle you couldn't explain, and you're like, okay, do you know how do I pray? Let me tell you how you pray. God is an original, unconditional being. No thought, no form, no shape, just the majesty of the original moment that all moments simulated from and are in the presence of. So in other words, you just honor your greatest intelligence's ability to fathom the unconditional, and you realize all conditions are in the presence of the unconditional. And you are liberated before needing an ideological condition. The poet Rumi says, you have no idea how hard I've looked for a gift to bring you. Nothing seemed right. What's the point of bringing gold to the gold mine or water to the ocean? Everything I came up with was like taking spices to the Orient. It's no good giving my heart and my soul because you already have these. So I've brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me. When he says remember me, doesn't mean remember me as Rumi. He says remember that there was something looking through the eyes of all of us that surpassed just an individualistic limitation. In the same moment we can say there's 8.1 billion individuals living on Earth, is the same moment we can say There is one being, one collective being living through 8.1 billion individual human bodies. That collective being poetically is the spirit of humanity. It is why we have all assembled in the same environment. Why, even though civilization 1.0 is evil, why are we still lingering in it? Because we care from where we began. And the moment the idea of greatness it touches the soul of anyone, do you know, it becomes a moment where they see that they did not deserve things just based on the past to the present. That from the present, it's just the furthest reaches of your awareness. You have to care. And in some sense, here's the hilarious thing. Again, I said it earlier. You cannot know your most advanced self until that most advanced self is in the most advanced world. And the definition of the most advanced world is everybody's most advanced in it. So the idea, the most genius thing to do on earth is turn everybody into geniuses. And it's not some person turned them. The advanced potential of the species was laying dormant, and some dude came and gave a podcast which was equivalent to, like, in some sense, how do I say it, being like a lion looking at the future and seeing something way chaotic than what human beings are being responsible for now, and in some sense roaring at the present that has forgotten itself and its past. You are a new being, a new DNA, and reality are programs you opt in. So folks, this list of Rumi quotes is endless. I'll read like few more and then I'll end. Rumi says, whatever happens to you, don't fall in despair. Even if all the doors are closed, a secret path will be there for you that no one knows. You can't see it yet, but so many paradises are at the end of this path. It's the inner ocean. He says, be grateful. It is easy to thank after obtaining what you want. Thank before having what you want. Yes. Yes, thank God I saw this sentence. Thank before having what you want. Be like, thank life before getting what you want. That's the secret path that Rumi is talking about. Rumi says, what you are seeking is also seeking you. Rumi says to love is human, to feel pain is human, yet to still love despite the pain is pure angel. The poet Rumi says, if you are looking for a friend who is faultless, you will be friendless. The poet Rumi says, do not look back. No one knows how the world ever began. Do not fear the future. Nothing lasts forever. If you dwell on the past or future, you will miss the moment. Yes, but the moment is its strategy to the future. You don't understand. This is why I am born ahead of Rumi. The poet Rumi says, maybe you're searching among the branches for what only appears in the roots. Maybe you're trying to solve a problem in the outer realms when its problem actually starts from the inner realms. Maybe you are searching among the branches for, oh no, I read that. Rumi says yesterday, no, I read that. Rumi says the world is nothing but a moment. Rumi says don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure. The poet Rumi says happy is the moment we sit together with two forms, with two faces, yet one soul, you and I. Rumi says you're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the mighty ocean in the drop. Rumi says love is not written on paper, for paper can be erased. Nor is it etched on stone, for stone can be broken, but it is inscribed on a heart, and there it shall remain forever. The poet Rumi says, find the sweetness in your heart, then you may find the sweetness in every heart. The poet Rumi says, being desirable means being comfortable with your own ambiguity. The most ambiguous reality is that we are flesh and spirit at the same time. Within everyone there is a light and shadow, good and evil, love and hate. In order to be truthful, you must embrace your total being. A person who exhibits both positive and negative qualities, strengths and weaknesses, is not flawed but complete. So let me read that again. A person who exhibits both positive and negative qualities, strengths and weaknesses, is not flawed but complete. The poet Rumi says, beyond the rightness or wrongness of things, there is a field. I'll meet you there. The poet Rumi says, life is a balance of holding on and letting go. The poet Rumi says, you show your worth by what you seek. The poet Rumi says, many of the faults you see in others, dear reader, are your own nature reflected in them. And then there's more. I'll read one more. I'll read two more and then I'll end. Rumi says, sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Whatever sorrow shakes from your heart, far better things will take their place. The poet Rumi says your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. The poet Rumi says, leave that which is not, but appears to be. Seek that which is, but is not apparent. And guys, that's 2 pages of Rumi quotes. There's like 10 pages. That's too much for me to read, but that's the end of the quote tunnel. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, I will say one more thing. Life is all about, on a very basic level, like where energy can't be created or destroyed. It changes from form to form. There's potential energy and then there's kinetic energy. So consciousness is what converts potential energy to kinetic energy. Okay, now the thing about energy is that we ascribe personality to the brain. We don't ascribe personality to energy. But if personality was ascribed to energy, that would be the definition of a soul. There's a reason they don't want philosophers in the science classroom. It's a childish reason. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. In the outer realms, go towards the most advanced state of it, which is the most advanced civilization known to the cosmos, the most advanced human civilization known to the whole cosmos, to everything. That means we're not just beings that need to ask for help. First, we have to check our own ability. And we have that potential ability. The advanced civilization is the restoration of mythos in modern times, and it is the archaic revival of the legend of the castles in the clouds, kingdoms in the sky. That is the main theme. They're like, what's the theme? For me, I am telling you, this world is so fascinating because it's more unknown than known. And we have barricaded ourselves inside known systems that loop, never wondering why all this unknown is here. Wonder about not just who you truly are, wonder about what your species truly is here for. What are we here for? Seems to be a simulated performance, yo. I'm this freaking object right now, and there's a subjective sense of self and an objective sense of self, and this subjective sense of self is constantly controlling what the object does. It's like if my consciousness isn't in a character in a story, life doesn't have meaning. Oh no. And so on some level, there's a madness to how reality is functioning, because the paradox is the great clue. Why are both realities being made aware of from a greater reality? That means it is very ignorant, and to me the human species is reaching it's one of the most advanced chapters in human history. We are evolving beyond nationalistic identity to truly identifying with the species itself. They're like, dude, do you identify as a citizen of this place or that place or whatever place? And I'm like, yo, man, just take another moment to look at things again and ask yourself, you're telling me we're all the same human species inside if we had x-ray eyes inside our body, we would see more red than we would see skin color. Do you understand? We are in some sense like our skeletons are all white colored. Do you understand what I'm telling you? We all have 5 fingers. We're all the same existential human class. Just like a video game, you can choose a class and then customize that character. You know, we're all part of the human class. Now, I am saying that if we spend our whole lives in our personalized reality, we forget about the life of the species. Wonder about not what you're going to do tomorrow. Wonder about what the legacy of the species is going to be till the end of time. It is about the greatness of our species, and there are bigger problems than the smaller problems we get depressed by. Advance humanity. Aren't these 2 words enough? Civilization 2.0 is the advanced potential of Civilization 1.0. But if Civilization 1.0 doesn't realize it, it will be the advanced potential of the sector, universal sector. In other words, I speak to humanity. Humanity doesn't listen. Okay, now we go talk to the mods and remind them why the system admin is here. Why the managers of a company cannot act like, the owner of the company in front of the employees. Why the visible truth is hiding a more invisible truth. Wonder about where all of it is. Awareness is not how you are everywhere. Everywhere is within your experience. Wonder about your intelligence. You have a DNA nobody else has. Nobody like you exists. Where none of us are clones. Everybody is unique. Trust yourself to realize how advanced you can be. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. Rise, mankind, rise in the presence of the one and only moment.